trip from all the corners of the globe to come to this occasion in this particular year. Now, I don't know about you, but I cannot believe that it's been 20 years. When, at the start of the year, when folks started talking about this, it just didn't feel real, because for me, the beginning of Ubuntu was Warthog, right? And so I was able to put it out of my mind and say, okay, all right, let's wait till October. But now, here we are, and it really has been 20 years of Ubuntu. So I want to start by just expressing such gratitude and appreciation for all of the people here and everywhere over many, many years who, in so many different ways, have made this project a joy and an unexpected adventure through time, through software, through communities, through countries, through culinary delights. Thank you to all of you who are at the summit or watching on video, who have friends watching on video. If you have in any small way, shape or form been part of making Ubuntu what it is today, I want to say thank you. It's a real pleasure for me to be here in The Hague. We had a much smaller summit here in The Hague in, I think, 2016. And I got to discover all these interesting places, museums, institutes, where great things have happened and great things are celebrated. And particularly in culture and art, this city is extraordinarily rich, and I hope all of you will get an opportunity to dip into parts of that you find interesting, or which remind you of things that you've seen. Of all of that, of the Rembrandts and the Vermeers, the single thing that I most enjoyed was a tiny little museum dedicated to MC Escher. And maybe you recognize this, or maybe you recognize some of his other work, but there's this amazing thing that happens between maths and art and perception and reality that is just extraordinary and unique in the world. So there is a tiny little place somewhere here in the city which has an incredible collection of his work, and I really would encourage you to go and see it. Maybe by the end of the summit you'll feel like a fish out of water, or a duck going for a swim, I don't know. But I hope you have a great time, and I hope that the experience is full of unexpected pleasures. And 20 years ago, we had just become Ubuntu. Before that, we were nonameyet.com. I think, in fact, that was registered as nonameyet.com. That was back in the days when the .com was a big idea. And we struggled, between the 30 or 40 of us who were coming together, mostly from the Debian community, right, to figure out what we wanted to call ourselves, right? There is this beautiful word of African tradition, Ubuntu, and that word is very hard to describe. It's often translated like this: I am what I am because of who we are. To me, that captures so clearly what open source is about, what it means to be part of something that's much, much bigger, and where you may never even know the impact that you're having on the people who are benefiting from something, right? And you may never even know the people from whom you are benefiting, right? That spirit of open source is beautifully captured for me by the word Ubuntu. So that's ultimately why we chose it. You could take this, you could look at it a different way. The measure of your success and the measure of my success is their success. And it kind of doesn't matter who they are, right? That's the beautiful thing about open source and about Ubuntu. Our contribution to open source is not just the obvious thing that we contribute, but it's the amplification of all of the contributions to open source that people find easier to get, or can build on more reliably, or are encouraged to explore and enjoy, because we brought a different take to it. Right? There is a community that builds something, right? Ubuntu. And often the temptation is to sort of say, well, that's what it's all about, right? This feeling of being part of something. But for me, the other half of this is all of the people doing brilliant things who don't identify as Ubuntu, right? Innovators who do things we wouldn't even know how to try, how to do. So I think about silicon companies, right? People who are working at entirely different kinds of abstraction, entirely different, with entirely different constraints and challenges, right? Doing kinds of innovation that, to me, are completely mysterious, right? And yet, by partnering with them, right, and bringing open source to their silicon, right, we unlock the future faster together, right? They bring us great big piles of open source to do things on brand new silicon, right, faster, sooner, right, because of who they are, right? We can be able to. I think of all the people who make devices, boxes, personal boxes, server boxes, data center boxes, IoT boxes, right? Bring open source to those boxes and magic happens, right? But conversely, bring those boxes to open source and magic happens, right? Our impact is amplified by the partnership we have with the people who build the actual systems that we all use. Think about the public cloud, this extraordinary new kind of compute, right? This seemingly endless, bottomless, although I'm told it doesn't feel that way if you actually work there, but from where I stand, endless, bottomless compute capability, right? That enables people to do incredible science, right, in a day. They might have waited 10 years to get a research grant to do, right? Or wait for the university supercomputer to get built, right? Or entirely new kinds of business to be built, right? Things that we never would have dreamed of because of public cloud, because of open source. And then I think of upstreams, ISVs, the developers, people who are doing things that we're not going to see for another 3 years, another 5 years, right? People who are drawing from the well of open source and pouring their own talent, their own ideas into that well, one way or the other, whether it's as code under an open license or as inspiration for code under an open license. Right? Again, we cannot hope to do what they do, but we can enable them to reach their audiences faster and better. We can enable them to ship software, right, with more confidence immediately, and more confidence in the long term, right? And they will contribute new ideas, new things to us. When Ubuntu got started, those amongst us who had brand new laptops had one core running at about 1 gigahertz, right? Brand new laptops. And yet today, you run that on a coin cell. It's incredible. I believe the next 20 years will be equally transformative in terms of the ambition that people have to create things we can't even dream about today. But they will do it because of open source and on open source, right? And It is a great privilege for me to be working right in the middle of all of that, right? Living a little bit vicariously through the stories of what people do with open source, the crazy challenges they face, and the ways in which open source enables them to dream those dreams. Canonical didn't really exist for a long time. It was only the Ubuntu community. And one of the interesting things has been to figure out how could we find a place and a relationship between company and community that would amplify the impact of both of those. In discussion with the Community Council this week, we were talking about that relationship, and it really reminded me of the fact that in the founding of Ubuntu, there was this idea that, well, we already had exceptional communities that were resiliently and resolutely purely communities in the way that Debian is, right? They're pretty extraordinary. And we already had companies that were exceptional, right? Who were focused on open source, the Red Hats, the SUSEs of the world, who had really blazed that trail, and credit to them for doing that. Right? We need to find a new space. We need to find a way of working, right, which would be genuinely different and genuinely new. So there have been many times in our history where people have said, oh, why don't you just do this because that's what everybody does? And I would say, well, because they've already done it. We don't add anything if we don't think differently about that relationship, right? Those relationships are difficult, right? All relationships can be difficult, right? People never want exactly the same thing. People never see the world exactly the same way. How dull if they did? We've all had different experiences. I think it's a real credit to everybody concerned that we have found this balance, right? It's something that brings me great joy to see people who work for Canonical and people who do not work for Canonical having an intellectual and emotional discussion about technology without necessarily knowing or caring whether the other person has a life. No, maybe that's the wrong term. But an agenda, right? Beyond solving this problem, right? I think it's a real credit to all concerned that largely we see that's what we see. This is our new London office at Canonical, and I was delighted that the very first event that was out there was the Shuttleworth for the Ceph community, right? With people from a wide range of companies and community interests, from the kernel all the way up, right? Hashing it out, hacking it out, bragging a little, boasting a little, pushing a little, right? Just like I like it. Just like our very, very earnest summits and conferences in very different circumstances. Innovation happens everywhere, right? There's so much computing. There's so much diversity in the kinds of computing. Public cloud, data centers, edge clouds, tiny little things, workstations, right? None of us can know the whole of it, right? But I would ask us all to try to find what we have in common, right? You may be across the table from someone who's trying to get something done on a mainframe. You might be trying across the table from someone who's trying to get something done on a supercomputer. You may be across the table from someone who's trying to focus on a personal computer, desktop environment, right? You all have something in common, right? Wherever innovation happens, we want to support that innovation, accelerate that innovation, and enable that innovation. not just wherever in compute, but wherever in space too. This is a very empty new Beijing office, where I hope, right, we can get members of the community, open source community, right, who are equally passionate about everything from AI to health to whatever they might be passionate about, right? To broaden our community, keep it an open community, right? And make sure that the benefits of open source reach every corner of the globe. We are different. We want different things, right? It's a great joy for me to see leaders who are driven and who are passionate and who are aware of details from the lowest level of the kernel all the way up to the highest level in terms of user experience or domains which I'll never have any deep understanding. To see those leaders able to craft something that expresses their vision, right? Enables them to push into their audience with much of the muscle that the whole Ubuntu community brings, right? Without necessarily distracting all of us, right, from the things that we care about. I want to thank everybody who showed up and said, I want to take Ubuntu in a different direction, right? But I will work together and make that a plus, right? Ubuntu plus. That's very difficult. That is definitely not the easy way to do it, right? Either technically or socially, right? That is not the easy way to do it. But in the long run, that's the way that it is. Over the last 2 years, we very carefully and very deliberately been enabling people to think about Ubuntu as an enterprise platform, as a mission-critical platform. And that was always going to be a very sensitive, delicate question, right? How are we going to do that? What are we going to take away? What are we going to lose if that happens, right? Inside Canonical, in the Ubuntu community, in the wider audience, right? I felt, others felt, we needed to be very, very careful not to spoil something that we all believe in. I want to thank everybody who's played a hand in shaping our thinking in how we do that. And the reason I think this is important in the community is because whatever your vision, whatever your audience, we want you, I want you, to feel like you can be pro. Ubuntu, pro. Kubuntu, pro. Right? There is no reason for a community project not to aspire, right, to deliver to that standard. And because we've done this the way that we've done this, I really believe it's possible. And I'd like to go further. I'd like people who are open source innovators or innovators on open source to feel that because we've done this way, even if they have nothing to do with Ubuntu, even if they have no interest in identifying with Ubuntu, if it's helpful for them, it makes it easier for them to be pro. Right. I'm sure we have a whole bunch more to do, but I wanted to share that that's the spirit in which we're doing it. This is the question. This is the question I ask that we ask. Right? What would be amazing? Everything's difficult. Everything's complicated. Something very controversial. Right? being different is controversial. But in the end, to do something that you feel is really amazing is worth a little bit of controversy, a little bit of sweat, some blood, some tears, right? So I hope whatever it is that you came here to do, whatever story you came here to tell, right? I hope that people can come up to you and say, that was amazing. And I hope that you'll go home thinking, I'm going to make it even more amazing because of someone I met, something I heard, something I saw, right? Something that came to me while I was staring at MC Escher. On that note, welcome. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm super excited to see at least one track at a time of everything you have to say. Thank you for coming.